Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and John Chai.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of chasingpokergreatness.com. And since today is a very tactical day, I'm joined by not my co-host. My co-host is locked up in the mountains somewhere with no service. I'm joined by CPG Private Coach Shu. Shu, how you doing, sir?
Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's long overdue. Maybe one day you and John can just get over, take everything over and squeeze me out of the picture.
Yeah.
Man can dream.
That would be nice, but
what do we have on the slate here?
So today's episode is about four-liner runouts and specifically, how to bluff catch on these types of runouts. So today we're going to look at two, semi-big pots where I had a strong hand on a four-liner board and faced some river aggression.
Yeah, and as we've learned over the past couple of weeks, four-liners happen about 10 to 15% of the time, depending on the flop texture, which is more than you would think. So pretty important to get these spots right. So without any further ado, let's dive into these hands. They're played. This first one's played at 1K and L, so $5, $10 blinds on your favorite platform in the US of A, Ignition. So we'll start breaking down the action. Everybody folds to the small blind, and Coach Shu opens to 30 with the Jack 10 of hearts. The big blind 3-bets, and you call. Any thoughts of 4-betting here? Calling, pretty typical.
Yeah, pretty straightforward call. Our hand is too weak to 4-bet, too strong to fold, so just smack dab in the middle of a calling range.
Yeah, so you can eliminate folding and you can eliminate 4-betting, which leaves the one option of calling. You start the hand, you have villain covered. Villain starts with about 110 big blinds. Flop is ace 10-9 with the 9-10 of spades. No hearts, so you flop middle pair. Checking to the pre-flop 3-better. And the pre-flop 3-better checks behind. So what's kind of going through your head when the big blind checks back?
Seems like a pretty natural check. I think on this board, it's fairly dynamic, so he should expect me to check raise at a pretty decent frequency, meaning that he can't just see bet his whole range, and he's going to have a pretty significant checking range, I would imagine. So, yeah, not too surprised to see a check, and yeah, pretty happy to see it because we get to now see the turn card for free.
And the turn card that was very free is your Jack of Spades. So you turn 2 pair. Board is ace, Jack, 10, 9 with 3 spades. So turn completes King, Queen, as well as possible flush draws, although fairly less likely since villain check behind on the flop.
Yep. So, yeah, even though we have 2 pair, the straight and the flush completes. So it's like a marginal strength hand at best. There are arguments for possibly betting this, but mostly just checking this, hoping to get the showdown as cheaply as possible.
Yeah, I think the argument for betting would entail that you're probably not going to get raised that often on the turn, because once villain checks back the flop, I mean, maybe they could check back some nut flushes too, like ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5 of spades. Those hands would actually make sense. So they are actually still uncapped. So, yeah, you might end up getting raised, but I think the one problem is when you bet the turn and villain calls, you're still behind quite often with no real way of knowing. So, anywho, you go ahead and check, and now villain bets a third.
Yeah, pretty slam dunk bluff catching spot. I think like thoughts of raising are similar to, why we shouldn't bet the turn. We probably can't raise the turn either, even versus a small bet, because we're not going to beat enough of the calling range and just, inflating the pot out of position with a marginal hand.
Yeah. And it's just a slam dunk call, and you get to always realize equity by calling. And I think raising is like, exponentially greater than, it just creates exponentially more problems than just outright betting the turn with your two pair. So definitely wouldn't be raising. The river is our theme of the day, the 7 of diamonds. So we have ace, jack, 10, 9, 7. So any 8 makes a straight. And villain has flushes available as well. You check, and villain bets 2/3 here on the river.
So first thought is, what are villain's natural bluffs? And honestly, don't see a whole lot of natural bluffs. Maybe some of like the suited king X and the queen X, like king 5 suited or something, or queen 5 suited. Those types of hands.
Maybe some of the weird ones like king
like,
X off that somehow have a spade.
Right. There are some bluffs, but not a ton. And then I asked myself, do I ever dominate value? So is villain ever value betting a worse hand? And it's possible they have a hand like jack 9 or 10-9. So we do dominate a very small portion of their value range, but ultimately they just have a lot of straights, sets, flushes, and better two pairs.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty ambitious for villain to be. I mean, like 9-10 has to check back the flop, so like I don't think 9-10 really checks back the flop.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ever. So we're looking at like jack 9 exactly. They don't bet 9-7. Maybe ace. Oh yeah, I was gonna say ace jack, but we still lose to that.
all the ace jack, ace 10, ace 9, yeah, ace 7 even.
Yeah. So like, and they just have a lot of king queen. I mean, it's really difficult to find natural bluffs here. So I mean, I assume you folded. I haven't seen this hand, but
right, we need to be good like somewhere around 30% of the time, and I just couldn't imagine us winning 30%, so I folded.
Yeah, even in loose formation, like I think it's a really good fold. 4 straights, just especially dangerous with flush available too, and villain could check back some flushes. What hands do you defend with here on the river? Like 7, 8.
Well, yeah, all my straights are calling. I would imagine like sets probably have to call because you're beating more of the two pair combos. Maybe like set of 10s or better are calling, everything worse. Or maybe just like all my sets call, and then like all my two pairs probably just fold.
Kind of hard to have a set here in blind versus blind, right? You're generally 4-betting like 10s, maybe 9s. Makes sense.
Yeah, probably just call with 9s and my straights. Maybe top 2 might sneak in there, but I'd be on the fence with top 2.
Yeah, you're blocking some of the hands that you would like them to be value betting.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I think it's a good fold. What do we have any whole cards? No, we don't.
Oh yeah, villain had a ace 8 offsuit, so they rivered the street.
We just have to take your word for it here on Tactical Tuesday. Just breeze right in and tell the listener whatever they want to hear. Yeah, guys, don't worry. They had the ace 8. Well, all right. I believe you this time. Let's take a break and check out hand number 2. I believe this one's at 2K&L, right?
Yep. Next one's at 2K&L.
Exciting stuff.
Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.
All right, welcome back to the Coach Shu edition of Tactical Tuesday, where the theme is playing on 4 straight runouts. And I should have gotten to this in the first segment. However, I'm a bad host, Shu. Please, you can have my forgiveness here. You have taken over as a CPG private coach. Anything you'd like to talk about as it relates to coaching?
Yeah, sure. If you want to hear me do my best Brad impression for an hour and 15 minutes, come get some coaching.
Boy, with a sales pitch like that, you'll be beating them off with a stick. They're lining out the door. But no, it's been really good. Like, just from my perspective, seeing your growth and progression, not just as a player, but as a coach over the past 6 to 9 months, ever since, you left your job as a mechanical engineer. It's just, these are, seeing stuff like that is what makes what I do so fulfilling. Just killing, and then also you're helping other guys improve, get better, you're communicating better, and it's just, yeah, it's a great thing to see. It's very rewarding, and I'm very grateful for, folks like you and John that are really kind of the fruit of my labor, as well as the other wolves.
Yeah, just trying to maximize my CPG experience.
I think you're doing a pretty damn good job. Me and John are going to be doing a wolf episode in the near future, and we have your graph over the past year, and it's a beautiful thing. It brings a little tear to my eye. It's really, really nice. Speaking of your graph bringing a tear to my eye, let's talk about this hand at 2K. Battling in the 2K streets these days, and you have a pretty good hand in the big blind. One might argue it's the second best hand in No Limit Hold'em, the Cadillac of poker. You have 2 kings, button opens, small blind 3 bets. I assume this is cold 4 city.
Yep, this is exactly where you want to be when you have pocket kings.
Well, maybe not exactly, but we'll take it. Everybody's putting money in the pot. So you called 4 to 470, which is about 23 big blinds. So right on the money. The button folds and the small blind calls. And you start the hand with like 125 bigs or so.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
A little more. I start the hand with like 2,700 or something.
Yeah, 2,700. The villain has you covered, so we can play for stacks. You get an interesting flop. There's 990 in the pot. The flop is ace king 10, so you flop a set on triple Broadway monotone, and the small blind checks. So let's talk about this flop spot, because I think the flop is actually maybe the most interesting node.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We've talked about this hand, so just going to repeat what we talked about in the past, but it's a spot where we have all the sets, but we don't have any straights or flushes. And the small blind has straights and flushes, but has maybe only pocket tens as their sets. Mm-hmm. So pretty interesting spot. In game, I decided to bet a third because I thought a set was pretty strong here. Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, probably checking is better because many bad runouts, we can easily get money in on later streets, and yeah, just
we don't have flushes. we don't have flushes or straights,
So villain can just like raise their flushes and straights, and we just have to put the money in.
Yeah. it's actually like what lower equity hands do you have here that bet the flop? Like queens with a queen of hearts. I think that hand is like a really interesting hand to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also a spot where I don't have many bluffs, which is weird. Just a weird spot.
Yeah. I think queens with the queen of hearts, I may just go berserk and start basically bet the flop with the intent of putting the money in on the future streets. And I mean, even if you bet the flop and they jam, like, okay, we still have a ton of equity.
Well, yeah, queens with the queen of hearts is basically like the nut combo draw.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we'll call queens with the queen of hearts your lower equity hand that you might bet. Probably should just be checking range, I think.
Yeah, that looks like the cleaner play in hindsight.
Yeah.
It's hard to not get excited when you flop a set in a 4-bet pot at 2K.
It is. It's much easier to find the check back when you're in a low pressure environment and you have, infinite time to think about everything. You bet a third, they call. Turn is a queen of spades. So now we have our famous 4-liner, ace, king, queen, 10 with the ace, king, 10 of hearts. SPR is a little bit more than 1. Villain checks. And I see no reason to bet the turn. Unless you can give me a reason, Shu.
Yeah, bet the turn to check back the river and squeak out some value from worse sets and 2 pairs.
Jab, bet the turn, and then you get jammed on.
Yep. Yeah.
And then you hate everything and probably don't get a chance to realize your equity, which makes you hate everything even more.
Yeah. That wasn't a serious suggestion. I was just trying to...
Hey, you just play the devil's advocate. But yeah, like, again, we didn't have many straights on the flop or any straights on the flop. We probably don't have any straights on the turn. Villain may have more straights now if they have ace jack or jack 10 or something along those lines, or even jacks. I think jacks is a hand that probably makes a lot of sense. So yeah, villain checks. You check back to realize your equity and pray to God and the poker god that's watching above to pair the board. Poker god says, go F yourself, Coach Shu. You get the 3 of diamonds, and then you got to make a decision because villain overbet rips the river.
Yeah, not a very exciting spot with the set. So we need to be right a little over a third of the time and just looking for some bluffs. Villain would need to be turning some 2 pairs into bluffs, like ace 10 or king queen or something like that. Possibly like pocket 9s with a heart could be in their range, but it's really hard for villain to have.
What about a set of 10s?
Set of 10s into a bluff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're better. I think you win versus ace king and ace queen enough where you don't have to bluff a set.
Better safe than sorry is not what John says. Better be safe.
But yeah, I couldn't find many natural bluffs. There's
Yeah.
straights and some low frequency flushes in there. If like 3-bet and then call it a 4-bet with like 7-8 suited or something. So
Yeah.
some flushes, many straights, not many bluffs.
So makes it just fold the river on the 4 straight. That's the theme. There's a 4 straight. We should probably be searching desperately for the fold button or the board pairing button. Villain just, as you said, they have a lot of straights. They have flushes. They don't have a lot of bluffs. If they do somehow show up with like a set of 10s or the random ace 5 of diamonds or something, then hats off to them. Well played. I think in general it's just really difficult for them to find enough bluffs. So you go ahead and make the fold on the ace, king, queen, 10 tray board. And the villain shows up with, well, you can't see. You can't see. What is this? What is this? These hands that were sent my way where we can't see. I know what they had because I saw the result before. They had the queen jack of diamonds. And I do think that villain messed up by not just ripping the flop. Like, yeah, they should have just ripped the flop. I mean, when you bet this board, like, you're almost never bet folding.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Maybe, yeah. They probably thought like they don't have any bluffs, and
neither do you.
Yeah, maybe it could just be a spot where like you just jam because you have a straight, and like it doesn't matter if you have bluffs or not.
Yeah, like you have, so like the four better just has a bunch of hands that have equity.
Yeah.
That pretty much are forced to call the jam.
Uh-huh.
And whenever somebody bets and like they just have almost all hands that are forced to call, you just rip, and then at that point you might realize, oh shit, wait a minute here. I don't have the straights and they do. I don't have the flushes and they do. But you got a set, so we have equity, so you can't really fold, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if they rip the flop, you're pretty much toast. But luckily, they didn't. And I think this board too, like lots of bad things could happen for them.
Oh yeah.
Like just four flushes and four straights, and things could just get, yeah, things get very dicey for them out of position. Better to just like neutralize the positional disadvantage and, you know, go ahead and get the money in. I mean, look right here, right? Like you check back the turn to realize equity and didn't put money in when the board didn't pair. Like that's really bad for them out of position, you know?
Maybe they missed the turn donk.
The turn donk.
I'm being honest. I think the turn could be a donk.
It could be, especially because you don't have many straights.
Yeah.
But if the turn's a donk, then the flop should just be a rip. Like, but actually, I think you're probably right in that. Like the in position player is just gonna check back. If you miss a flop check raise, and the in position player just like checks back and over realizes their equity every time, like you pretty much have to donk.
Yeah. Oh, now I know what to do when I'm out of position here.
Yeah. Whenever they have all the sets, you just jam. Or call and wait for the board to get scary and donk. That's for more top shelf coaching sessions, you can check out chasingpokergreatness.com and book a consult with Shu. This has been good, man. I enjoy breaking down these hands with you, and maybe we'll have some Coach Bradless Tactical Tuesdays with you and John in the future. I somewhat shudder to think about what would happen, but also it'd be the first time that I listened to a Tactical Tuesday back in quite a while. Yeah, anything you'd like to add before we call it a day?
Nope.
All right. Well, John and I, maybe we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
You missed it. You said no.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter, join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.